Marco Polo, 1254 to 1324.
Marco Polo was the first person to travel the entire 8,000-kilometre length of the Silk Route, the main trade link between Cathay, China, and the West for over 2,000 years. He was born in Venice, the son of a merchant. In 1271, when he was 17, he set off for China. The journey took him 4 years. His route led him through Persia, Afghanistan, and Mongolia. He travelled by boat, but mainly on horseback, and he frequently got lost. He was met by the Emperor Kublai Khan. He was one of the first Europeans to visit the territory, and he travelled extensively. He went over mountain ranges, down rivers, and across deserts. He stayed in China for 17 years. When he left, he took back a fortune in gold and jewellery. He arrived back home in 1295. He wrote a book called The Travels of Marco Polo, which gave Europeans their first information about China and the Far East.
Backpacker raises money for charity.
Jake Ellis is in Singapore. He's on a 9-month backpacking trip round Southeast Asia. He flew into Bangkok 5 months ago. Since then, he's been to Laos, Vietnam, Hong Kong and Cambodia. But Jake hasn't been partying his way around the tourist spots. He's raised thousands of pounds for water aid by doing a sponsored bike ride from Saigon to Angkor Wat. He's learnt a lot about history in Vietnam, seen amazing scenery in Laos, and visited ancient temples in Cambodia. He's been staying in cheap hostels, along with a lot of other travellers.
I've met a lot of really great people, but it hasn't all been easy. I've had diarrhoea a few times, and I've been mugged once. That was really scary.
Apart from that, his only worry is the insects. He's been stung all over his body. He's been travelling mainly by public transport, bus, train and ferry, but when he's been able to afford it, he's also taken the occasional plane. He's been taking it easy for a week before setting off again for the Philippines.
Once you've got the travel bug, it becomes very hard to stay in the same place for too long.
Alan.
They are one of the most eerie and strange experiences you can possibly have. The first time I saw them, they appeared as a kind of shimmering curtain over the top of a ridge of mountains, and they went from a greeny colour to a kind of purpley red colour, and they just stayed there. And the second time I saw them, it was the most amazing sight because they were right above our heads, and they covered the whole of the sky. The other interesting thing is that not everybody hears it, but they sometimes make a sound, a kind of buzzing noise. It was a real sense of wonder and awe. I just kind of sat there with my mouth hanging open, just feeling kind of small.
Bernie.
It was around midday. About 30 of us set off. The weather was fantastic. Not a cloud in the sky. We were all very excited. I don't think we really knew what to expect. There was a nervous kind of feeling amongst us. But then nothing happened at all for the first 20 minutes or so. We just sailed around, waiting for something to happen. Then all of a sudden the captain came across the loudspeaker and said, "I've spotted something." So everyone got real excited and we ran to one side of the boat. And after a while, we spotted something in the water, but quite far away, so we couldn't really see. And then suddenly this huge, beautiful creature leapt out of the water, flipped around and landed back in again with a splash. It was massive. I mean, really massive. I don't think anyone was expecting it to be so big. It was really close, and it did it again and again. And it was like once one had started, all the rest joined in. So eventually there were about 6 circling the boat. I think they were just curious about us. And they kept coming closer and closer. It was as if they were showing off, as if they were like putting on a show for us. We felt really emotional because they were such beautiful creatures. It was quite a privilege to see them. So, after about maybe half an hour, we had to go back to land, and everyone was left feeling really exhilarated. It was a joyful experience.